Right, great. Thank you for joining. Next up is Illinois.
Good afternoon, Cornetta Grant from Illinois.
Hi, Quinetta.
Hi there.
Anyone else? We're going to move over to Kentucky.
Well, this is Roxana Robinson, and Twyla Hammonds and Nancy Tapley are here, and we're all excited to join you all.
Oh, we're excited to have you. Thanks for being on. Hello.
Right.
We're waving at you.
Hey. Thank you. Next up is Louisiana. Anyone? Nope. All right, we are down to Montana, or up to Montana. Do we have any participants from New Hampshire on our call today?
Good afternoon, Carla Smith from New Hampshire.
Hey, Carla. Anyone else? Next up is New Jersey.
Hi, this is Elaine Katz from New Jersey.
Hey, Elaine. Thanks for joining us today. Anyone else? We have New Mexico next. All right, North Carolina.
This is Beth Duga from Rocky Mount, North Carolina.
Hey, thanks for being on today. And Oregon.
Good morning. This is Cindy Cameron from Southern Oregon.
Hey, thanks for being on.
It's a snow day, just to let you know.
Wow, congrats. We don't have snow in Arkansas yet.
I like the word yet.
Yet. I still have hope. South Carolina. All right, last up is Virginia. Okay, well, thank you all for being on today. Again, we're excited to have you join our Communities of Practice from our Leadership Academy. First up, we have a great presentation from Marty North. You remember her from our event in New Orleans where she shared with us an introduction to implicit bias. And so Marty is Senior Vice President and Director of Community Development, CRA, for Simmons Bank, a financial institution in Arkansas, based in Arkansas. So we're again excited to have her join us and share more and even have a conversation if you have questions or comments that you can share with her today. And I'll turn it over to Marty.
Okay, we're gonna hope. Oh, what? Okay, let's see here. What are all the options I could put on the screen? I'm not well in Zoom, and things came up I wasn't expecting to see.
It gives you the option of sharing anything that you have open on your computer.
So that's what I feel like I need to do, because I didn't see what I'm looking for to actually be open.
And if you have it, you can email it to me. I can share it as well.
It's not show all of those. Okay, it's not showing my PowerPoint. Aha, there we go. What can you see?
We can see it.
Yay! Okay, so thank you once again for this fabulous opportunity to talk about something I'm particularly excited about and passionate about, And since most of you, if not all of you, are in New Orleans, part of this will be a quick refresher, and then we'll kind of segment into a specialized area within this bias or unconscious bias or implicit bias space. So as a reminder, every little bit can have big consequences in how we interact with others, the type of policies and procedures and practices and actions that we take. And once again, level setting that we all share in this belief that we are unbiased or that we are good judges of ourselves as it relates to this space. But over and over again, research has affirmed this is an inflated self-perception. So we all are wired with a variety of information that we take in. Our brains sort it, decide what to do with it, how to process, when to use it. And then we're constantly taking in and interacting with other people, taking in additional information. And our life experiences all add up together to form in us certain biases. It's impossible to eliminate all of them, but it is our hope and responsibility that we'll become more aware of them and learn how to manage and work through them. So today I wanted to spend a little time on this term called intersectionality. And when you think of intersectionality, it basically just says that we occupy a variety of different labels within our society, and we're not singularly anything. I think this is really important, especially as we work with certain population groups in which we may not share all the same connections. We may be situated differently, that we are mindful of this issue of intersectionality. So for example, you'll notice on the screen, race, class, gender, it could be disability, it could be educated, rural versus urban. There's a variety of different ways in which we occupy more than one label or one social category. This is very important, and I tell people this idea of intersectionality also is connected to privilege. So I will use myself as a physically able person. I operate in a variety of different methods or different social categories. Black, female, able-bodied matters. So when I enter a room, I don't have to worry about necessarily navigating the space. So I am able-bodied and have that privilege, whereas another individual who may have physical handicaps, who may also be Black, we may have a Black female, we have those two in common, but we would then diverge as it relates to being able-bodied or having a physical disability. So always being mindful of where intersectionality exists and where it does not exist. So I took this from a presentation I did to a women's group, and I thought this was really, really interesting because oftentimes when we get data suffers from not understanding intersectionality. So oftentimes when you see information that's on women, it's generally viewing women as a homogenous group, but we're really not, and that matters. And then when you hear Black, it's typically both male and female, and we're also not a singular group, so that intersectionality matters. And so when we're looking at frameworks and performance and policies, making sure that we understand and respect the nuances and subgroups within these larger frameworks of gender or race or income or however you can slice up a different social construct. So when we're thinking about intersectionality, broad terms can be used in some instances, but when we're trying to get into the weeds of trying to make a difference or change outcomes, we have to go deeper and pull apart those differences within the subgroups and make sure that we're honoring those and creating pathways and thought processes and programs potentially that address the differences of that larger group. I hope that makes sense. So this is one way of looking at it. A bird is in a cage. So, and you're like, okay, examining one wire cannot explain why a bird cannot fly. So the bird's in the cage. You can't focus on one singular wire and say that is the singular reason why a bird is not flying. There's an entire cage that's built various metal wire pieces. It has a door. It may have a hanging apparatus. It has some type of base. There's a lot of different factors at play. So when we're thinking about how to unpack and confront some of our own biases, oftentimes we think that a group other than ourselves or situated socially different than ourselves, and this one singular thing is the reason why you see a particular behavior or outcome, but it's rarely ever that simple. It's multiple things converging together that, in this case, reinforce why this bird, if we were in this picture or trapped in this cage. But the zeroing in on just one singular root cause would totally deny the full totality of the bird's limitations or constraints. So when we're thinking about different structures and policies, a whole lot of different things come together, and all of these things are working in the background of in our mind. So I said earlier how we're taking in a variety of information and we're cataloging it, and we're not aware that oftentimes the things that we're hearing in the news and conversations that we hear or engage in, or headlines or stories that we read or books or movies, all of this information is being cataloged in our brain. And oftentimes, unintentionally, when we interact with some of these individuals or come to face with them or are asked to think in a critical way, all of these different things are working in the background. So in slowing down one's mind to try to say, okay, what type of information may I have received that is impacting my decision-making process, that is impacting the way in which I am interacting or interfacing with someone. For those of you that were in New Orleans, you know about my high heels, and I do have high heels on today. That same thing, that who do you extend immediate empathy for? Who do you judge more critically when you interface with them? And then asking yourselves why. Slowing down that process and thinking about the why. So part of a more complex understanding within this broader cultural competency and bias space is keeping in mind, if we're operating from a one-dimensional standpoint, that one variable will try to explain a whole bunch of differential outcomes. Unfortunately, that's not a good way to go about it. Multidimensional says, okay, there are individual bars working together to, in this example, cage the bird. So it's a variety of different things. And this helps us to better understand processes and relationships if we take the time to understand the uniqueness of a variety of factors converging together produce a variety of different outcomes, and therefore will require different strategies to address. So within the space of intersectionality, it's important to realize none of us are singularly any one thing. And there are times when we're thinking about really large, broad concepts, we try to conveniently narrow them down to really broad terms. But in doing so, we often lose the uniqueness that is really important in how we approach various subjects, outcomes, and policies. So intersectionality is really important in data. I'm constantly pushing different ones. They'll have information by race and ethnicity, and then they'll have a report based upon gender. And you would say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, part of the challenge is intersectionality is lost. So if you're trying to address some of those, like why are there not any more individuals in this particular position, or why is this particular outcome, where they get lost in the data when you don't take the time to break these apart. So a person can be Hispanic female, but to be able to really look at Hispanic female information, you can't do that if you look at gender separately in one bucket, singularly, and race and ethnicity, for example, in another. So when we need to consider ourselves connected to instead of isolated from thy neighbor, but that requires us to also be mindful and respect the fact that there are differences, and differences are okay. Differences are not bad. They're just different. And one of the things that makes our country great is the fact that we have so many differences that help work together to make a more positive and wonderful country. That I knew I only had 20 minutes, so I was trying to go as quickly as possible. Questions, comments, concerns, desires? Wide open.
For opening the floor, asking for your comments or questions to Marty about this topic of intersectionality, and understanding why it's important to see people from a lot of different perspectives. So if you have anything you'd like to share or have more information on, please share that now.
This is Peggy. I have a comment I'd like to make. I was reading some information. I was on ethics and diversity, and it brought up a very interesting point that I have noticed in my life. Some of you may be running across this too, that elderly people are the newest, biggest diverse group. And there's a lot of intersections there. I'm a woman, and I'm in that older group. And if you're Black, you're a Black woman and in that group. And I think there's a lot of things that we face because we're in that older group that are unique to us.
That is so very accurate.
Get more every day.
And then as we get older, and depending upon our retirement situation and income, you throw in the economic aspects of getting older. That's just another layer. And I'm not sure which group you were in when you said that it's older group. I don't know, baby boomer, perhaps?
Yeah, baby boomer.
So you are the second largest group currently in the country. Millennials are larger than the baby boomers. But, you know, it's a timing issue. Those of us that are the fabulous Gen X, the compressed group in between, also have a whole nother set of unique challenges as well. Great observation.
It is. Thank you, Peggy. Anyone else want to share? I have a question for Marty on implicit. Now, Marty, you said it's better to use, I forgot, implicit or unconscious bias?
So I prefer the term unconscious because it seems to be a kinder, gentler term, whereas implicit sounds kind of harsh and like we're accusing someone of something. So it's just a preference for me that I use unconscious because of the brain connection. That's the only reason I use that term.
Okay. Floor is open for comments or questions or further discussion. I have a question, Marty. You talked about understanding the why. Why do we judge more quickly? Why do we see people a certain way? Do you have any suggestions or activities for people to use for reflection to help us dig deeper so that we'll know Because if we're not aware that we're doing those things, that we have those biases, what can we do to kind of spur that, encourage that?
Absolutely. So step one is saying, okay, I know I am biased, and that's okay. That's step one. We have to first acknowledge. Step two is to, and I can send you some of these resources separately, Robin, that through a couple of inventory quizzes to answer some questions. The Project Implicit exercise that I mentioned while I was in New Orleans, you can Google that. That one is really telling, 14 different modules. And I learned of various ones that I have. And then when you become aware of it, you have a responsibility to monitor yourself. We're not going to always get it right, but when you feel yourself developing that icky feeling or that uncomfortable feelings, it's an opportunity to take a deep breath and say it's me, and that I need to work through this, and start asking yourself the questions: where did I get this from? Or are there things that I heard growing up as a child? What were the images that I saw? And then deliberately go out and seek other positive images to counterbalance those negative images. So then our brain has kind of a level set, and then we're constantly challenging when we're having those negative reactions to slow down, ask ourselves why, and kind of push through that. Now, this is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. So it's not a one and done exercise or read 2 or 3 books and we are cured. This is a lifetime commitment to doing this, because these creep up on you all of the time. So I can send you a list of resources and a couple of kind of self-inventory checklists that you can share with the group if you'd like.
That'd be great. We do have a website and resources that we share, so that'd be wonderful. And if you haven't done the Project Implicit quizzes, I encourage you to do that, because it covers a range of issues, a range of biases that you or we may not be aware of, that we are carrying around with us.
I know I discovered one as it related to weight that kind of threw me. I was like, oh, wow, didn't I realize this about myself? It's like, okay, Marty, we got to work on this. We got to work on it, you know?
Yeah, part of our discussion, again, going back to New Orleans, we covered the topic of emotional intelligence, and the number one of the 5 areas of EQ is self-awareness. So if you have some self-reflection activities that you can participate in, that also helps you to become more aware of your own unconscious bias.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions for Marty? If not, Marty, thank you so much. We appreciate you being on today, and we look forward to receiving those resources and sharing those with the group on our Leadership Academy website.
Will do. So, Robin, is it okay if I go ahead and cut out?
Yes. Thank you, Marty.
Okay. Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Next up on our call is Elaine Katz, who is Senior Vice President, Grants and Communications with the Kessler Foundation. She's going to share some information with you about resources that could potentially support your sustainability efforts. So, Elaine, thank you for being on today, and we look forward to hearing more about the good work of the Kessler Foundation. You are muted, so you might. We can. Oh, we can hear you.
You can, yeah, because I have, I'm using my telephone, so
Okay.
If you do want to mute my other microphone so you don't have interference, that would be fine. Okay, so Robin asked me to share some information with you about our Signature Employment Grant Program. This is our national grant making program. We have an open request for proposals, letter of intent that's due on February 14th. I really encourage people across the country to apply. Let me tell you a little bit about the program itself, and then a little bit about Kessler Foundation, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the statistics of our grant last year. So this national call has about $1.5 million. We usually fund 3 or 4 projects, but the main focus of this project is innovation. And what we're looking at is innovation. It's in regards to employment for individuals with disabilities. Many underserved populations do have sometimes unidentified groups of people with disabilities in it, but is particularly only funding people with disabilities, which leaves it pretty wide open for a partnership and other ways to incorporate employment and people with disabilities into some of the work that this conference is about, and also in your communities. And when we look at innovation, we're not talking about something totally new necessarily, but what we're talking about is taking what's out there. So it's not like inventing, Thomas Edison inventing the telephone. It's taking what's out there and maybe putting the pieces together differently. So I'll give you an example of what we're funding this year. We're working with the state of Vermont, who came to us with a proposal, and the idea is to have people with disabilities leave public benefits such as Social Security, income, Social Security, disability, because people are always better off working. Let's assume they have a job that provides a living wage. But sometimes they don't want to work because they're afraid of losing their benefits. So what the state of Vermont is proposing is once the benefits are set to end, and there's a whole system and way of doing that, the first month when they don't have those public benefits, the state of Vermont will give them an extra payment, and then the third month following being off the benefits, they will be getting an extra payment. So what they're doing now is changing the way they do business for this one project, which may extend to the whole state, but at the same time, they're taking the pieces of what's already out there, systems already out there, and kind of changing them up a bit. There's lots of examples on our website of projects we funded. There's also a best practice paper you can see. But besides the innovation, it needs to be very large projects. So we're looking for a citywide project. We're looking for a countywide project, state project, multi-state project. These grants are for $500,000 up to 2 years, and organizations have to have a minimum budget of $3 million. We will fund public entities like states, universities, cities. They do have to be non-sectarian, though. We will not fund a religious organization that does not only serves one particular denomination. It's not open to the public. So that's basically the program itself. We've been doing this program for about 8 years. It's been national. Some of the caveats in the program is we do get an awful lot of applications. This is a 2-step project. So a very short application is due in February with your concept and idea. And at that point, even though you have to submit a budget and you have to submit, maybe talk about who your partners will be, that can all change if you're invited to submit a full proposal later in April. So in April, we announce who can go forward with a full proposal. Full proposals will be due in June. And then in the fall, we do video conferencing with all the candidates. So all of this information is on our website. Last year, we got 78 different concepts. We narrowed it down to a dozen, so already you can see it. We can weed out a lot. We invited 12 organizations to send us full proposals. We interviewed 4, and we funded 3. And this year, for a change, we have everything up in early January, so all the grants we did last year is actually on our website under grants by year. So that's really it in a nutshell. The hardest piece of this is really innovation, because we're not looking for expanding a current project that you might be working on. That's nice to expand from your city to another city without changing it up. We do sometimes fund programs that are in existence already that are really looking to scale up, but there has to be a significant scale in that. And the idea also, with many funders is sustainability. We want to make sure that after we give money, which we will really look at seed funding, that there is going to be a stream of money or a way to continue the program, and oftentimes in employment and disability, it tends to be getting reimbursed for services through other public systems. Is there any other information you wanted, Robin? Otherwise, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I think that was great information. I don't have any questions at the moment. Does anyone else? We'll open it up and see if anyone else has questions or things that they wanted to run by you that they're thinking of.
I can walk through our process too of how we evaluate them if that would be helpful to people as well.
Sure.
Okay, so most funders, when they get applications, we're not a huge funder, so we don't get thousands of applications. So it may be different if you're a very large funder, but your average funder is going to take the applications, they're going to review them through some sort of a screening process, whether it's scoring, screening with an internal team, then they're going to meet with the key people on their grant decision team and make those decisions. Typically, once decisions are made, if it's not a two-step process, then they will bring it to probably a board of directors. So we have internally at Kessler Foundation a grants committee which has about 10 people from our larger group of trustees that sit on it. We discuss the grants, we talk about the grants. Myself as the key point person internally is actually presenting information about the grants. And what you may not realize is that in a lot of cases now, these are not federal government grants. We have a peer review system and it's very different. But for a lot of private foundations, your grant application does not get presented to a committee. Your grant application is summarized into 1 or 2 pages, which is what we do. So the 1 or 2 pages is the key points. So for example, we don't look at particularly how it's written or what words you use because we may be picking out paragraphs or some foundation truly write a whole new summary to present. That summary budget information is presented to our group of trustees. Or other grants that aren't national, we just look at the summaries and talk about them. They're national grantees, and some other foundations may do video conferencing, they may do site visits. And then those decisions are really made by the group of trustees. So if you think of a sales process, the representative from the foundation who gets the grants is really, the salesperson. They're the in-between the applicant and then sometimes the decision makers. Because even though I'm part of the decision makers, it's ultimately up to our board of directors because the money is the foundation money. That who gets the grant. So once the recommendations are made from a grants committee, it goes to our whole board. At a quarterly board meeting, gets approval for funding or not funding. But by that point, usually when it goes to the full board, it's usually approved because the grants committee has either thrown out the ones they don't want to fund or tweaked the amounts or whatever changes they've made.
Thank you, Elaine. Any questions or comments for Ms. Katz?
If anybody's interested, you can call me offline and discuss things too. We're happy to do that.
We have included a link on our Project E3 Leadership Academy page to the Kessler Foundation website. So that's available to you if you want to go online and get more information. Or as Elaine has said, you can reach out to her directly if you have a comment or question that you'd like to ask. But the floor is open if you have anything you want to share at this time. Ideas, questions, comments. Hearing none, thank you, Elaine. Thank you again, I appreciate it. So we're gonna move on and hopefully someone in our group will be able to submit a great proposal that Kessler will invite and fund. Next, we're gonna turn over to John Walsh and get an update on our sustainability and work plans. Hi, John. John Walsh?
Let me try this. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Am I clear, Robin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was having some difficulty with my headset. It seemed to be not functioning. So what I'm now is switching over to a more reliable system. Well, first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season and Greatly appreciate your continued participation in our community of practice. In relation to sustainability plans, we thank you all for sending us your versions of your sustainability plans, and we greatly encourage you, when you continue to work on those documents, to just make sure to send me a copy of that. We are also now in the process of sharing those sustainability plans with our project officer at RSA, Felipe Lule. He's very interested to see the work that's occurring in the states throughout the country. So perhaps by the next meeting, I'll also be able to give some feedback as well from our project officer on that topical area. The other piece is, if folks are finding that they need help in developing some additional concepts within their sustainability plans, please let Robin know, and I can work with Robin, and perhaps we could do something on a future session to work on that issue. Or if you want to work individually with me, I can work with you as well on a particular area related to your sustainability plan. The plans are really yours, and their intention is to really look at, as Project D3's funding winds down come September 30th, 2020, is how can we ensure that some of the change initiatives you've implemented in your state have the supports necessary in order to be sustained and to flourish. So if there's anything that I can do or Project D3 can do, please make me aware of that.
Sounds good, John. Any comments or questions regarding sustainability of work plans?
Robin, can you repeat that?
Yes, I asked, opened it up and I said thank you to you for sharing. It sounds good. And ask if anyone has a comment or question regarding the sustainability and work plans. John, you mentioned the potential of getting feedback from Felipe with RSA, some of his comments on those sustainability and work plans. And you also mentioned if people need help on completing any portions of those, to reach out, let me know or let you know. We'll provide technical assistance in any way. I think those are two great options. Hearing the feedback from RSA will be really good. So we look forward to getting that as you begin to share those with RSA. And again, if anyone needs assistance with completing or feel stuck or need ideas or help, please reach out and to me or John Walsh and let us know how we can be of assistance. Any other questions or comments? Any discussion items, things that you want to see addressed in any other upcoming community of practice meeting? Floor is open to get your comments. What do you want to see, or what topics do you want to get more information on? Any thoughts or ideas? Future topics, conversations? Y'all are really quiet. So we're gonna keep the conversation going. So next month we do have our meeting scheduled potentially for February 27th. It's a little bit later than our normal meeting date. And so I wanted to put that out there because the 20th, I'm obligated that day for training. So I just want to make sure that that works for everyone's schedules, that we can meet on February 27th instead of the 20th. Does that work good for everyone? Still at 1 p.m. Central Time, or you can type a yes, or you can say a yes or no, or just let me know.
Robin, at present, that works for me.
Thank you.
It's It looks like that's right at the tail end of Mardi Gras week.
Oh,
Or that is Mardi Gras week. So I'm now working for Southern University in Baton Rouge. I have a greater appreciation of that holiday. So, so it's more in my consciousness these days.
yes, it's a scheduling issue, definitely, for sure.
Exactly.
It looks like others are saying from California and Illinois, Cynthia and Rosalind have all said that that works for you as well in Kentucky. So thank you for your responses. We will go ahead and put that on our calendars for February 27th. Any final thoughts or comments for today? So just for our next meeting, be thinking about future topics. We'll be focusing a little bit more on financial education, financial literacy for our upcoming February 27th meeting. If you go on our Community of Practice website on our Project E3, you'll find under resources a tab where I've included some resource material for your use. It is targeted for college students, for young adults or teens. So it's just information resources from the University of Arkansas that they've put out there that I thought were pretty fun. Some games, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and some other just fun, interactive activities that you may consider using as you are using financial education, financial literacy with your community groups. Just a good resource. So if we would like to continue that topic for our February meeting in March, we also will be looking at another resource that Dr. Strouser, I think, put together that he'll be sharing with the group. So we're looking forward to that conversation for March. Again, if you aren't able to participate in any of those discussions, please keep in mind that we are recording these and we'll be including a link for your viewing and listening pleasure at a time that's convenient for you. Any final thoughts or comments before we adjourn? As John has said, thank you again for participating. Happy New Year. We hope you all had a great, restful holiday and have great things planned for 2020. We will keep you informed and be in touch, and we'll be sending a link to today's session. And be sure and check out the website with those additional resources. We'll also include the resource material that Marty mentioned earlier about continuing the conversation and how to do some reflection regarding unconscious bias. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn our meeting. You all have a good day. Thank you.
Take care, all.
Goodbye, everybody. See you next month.